It's time to welcome and introduce our special guest. Our special guest is Charlene from Island Jumper Travel. She's been somebody that we followed on Instagram and on YouTube for some time now. She has a lot of great information about just general information about cruising, cruise planning. She's got some very interesting information in particular that we when we saw her video on Cuba, we were really interested to see what that experience would be like. So we want to welcome Charlene in before I waste any more time, because time's wasting. We got to get Charlene in here. So let's welcome in Charlene from Island Jumper Travel.
Hey there. Hi.
Welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here and really excited to talk to people about cruising who want to hear about it instead of just indulging me like normally happens. So,
oh, come on. Yeah, no, I think people are really excited to hear about this topic. This is something that, like Joy was saying, we kind of feel jealous. We didn't get to experience it. You were lucky enough to get in on the window when you could go to Cuba twice. Yes, you're rubbing it in. Can you believe that? Yes, twice, and both times on Empress of the Seas, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, yep, and we'll get to that. But again, and we'll talk about your YouTube channel. You've got a great Instagram channel. You're on Facebook. You got your own website. I believe Island Jumper Travel. You are a travel advisor too.
I am. I kind of just started for myself and friends. But yeah, it's a kind of a hobby gone crazy.
Yep.
So.
But that means you're learning, you're able to answer questions, and this is what we really enjoy about your channel. And I'm not supposed to be talking about her channel so much up front, am I? We're supposed to be talking about Cuba and the cruise ship, right?
We're supposed to be asking her questions, interviewing her. So
we'll tell you more about her channel in just a minute, but I'll tell you right now, it's linked down below. If you haven't checked it out and subscribed, go ahead and do that, and you won't miss much. We're going to start off right. What are we talking? We're going to talk about Cuba in just a minute, but first, let's start by talking about. We want to know a little bit about Empress of the Seas, a ship that is no longer in the Royal Caribbean fleet, unfortunately, but a special, smaller ship. So you want to start with the questions?
Sure.
Okay.
How would you describe the Empress of the Seas?
Tiny. It was the smallest ship I've ever been on. It was refurbished, but it clearly was an older ship, and the rooms were mostly interior or rooms with a window, so it didn't have balconies and the kind of the things we've gotten used to in modern day ships. But there were a lot of places to just go hang out that were very comfortable. So it was clearly designed to not spend a lot of time in your room. The rooms were very minimal, but it was a cute little ship.
Yeah, it looks like it's one of those ships. It's kind of like, I think when we talked before, we were saying how some of these other ships, we had a guest on who talked about Carnival Fantasy, and it's one of these smaller ships that looks really intimate and interesting because it's been in the fleet for a while. It's kind of takes you back in time, and when you don't get a chance to sail on these, at least for us, we kind of feel like we missed the ship.
We missed the boat.
Well, yeah. So quite literally missed the ship, but it's there's so many to choose from. Yeah, it's hard to
you didn't get lost in the ship.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, it was really easy to not get turned around, that was for sure. Unlike Oasis or one of the big
yeah, it's not like the Oasis Club. You could probably almost fit the Empress of the Seas back on the what's that back deck? If you could squeeze in past the Aqua Theater, you could get it in there. Squeeze it into the. No, maybe not. Okay, but
it was pretty tiny. Like I think even smaller than like the Monarch. So it was by far the smallest ship. But they don't have a huge port in Cuba, so I'm not sure. When we start back, and I'm sure we'll start back at some point cruising there again, I'm not sure, like with Royal Caribbean, I'm not sure what ship they'll be able to sail there on because it is pretty small space.
Yeah, you raise a really good point, and that's you think of some of these smaller luxury cruise lines or the river boat cruise lines, they have these really small ships, and that's one of the advantages of them. They're able to go places into ports, even ports that have smaller access than Havana. You go some of the ports in Europe, and you're not getting there even on Empress of the Seas. You'd need a really small ship, so it allows you to explore some exotic places. But we'll get to Cuba in a minute. A couple more questions about the ship for people that did get experience the Empress of the Seas. Can you tell us about what some of your favorite venues on the Empress of the Seas were?
Well, it didn't have a ton of things. Like there was a Chops, but we didn't even go there. We didn't even do specialty dining because the main dining room was really fun and the people at the tables were really, really exciting to talk to. But the Boleros was amazing. So the Boleros was really well laid out. And behind the Boleros was a big smoking area. So of course, like cigars being a big part of the Cuban experience, it had a huge smoking area and it was covered. So it was like on the 5th floor or something, but it was like a little slice that had air flowing through it, but it had, ship above and ship below. And it was like behind the Boleros, like big smoking lounge, the biggest smoking area that I've ever seen.
Wow.
And so we really hung out at Boleros a lot. And also Boleros had a coffee. So you could get coffee there in the morning. And it was also where some pastries and stuff were, but you could get yourself a Cuban coffee in the morning.
Nice.
Very nice. And for people who don't know, I mean, I think most people have heard of the Cuban cigar and how it's difficult to get them in the United States and all that stuff. But Boleros, at least from our experience on Royal Caribbean, Boleros is already kind of a Latin themed, live music, people dancing. So it's already kind of got that great vibe for a country like Cuba.
Right.
And you add in this. Yeah, that was really well thought out. And so the smoking area was like a separate smoking room.
It was an open area, but it backed up to the bar of the Bolero. So you went outside the Boleros, and it was like an outdoor space. It was really big. It was like usually the smoking area is just like a few feet by a few feet. This is like two large living rooms or something.
Right.
It was
nice.
Really large.
So it had comfortable seating too.
It did. It had and really nice seating, because normally I guess the smoking area is a lot of times by the pool, but this was had like kind of wicker chairs, and it was quite comfortable, and there was a lot of space for a lot of people to hang out and drink and smoke, but it was just a really big area, like really big.
Right. And there's this guy named Sam on here, and he's commenting, and he's commenting. He's got some information on this too somehow. It's on the aft. Maybe you and Sam should talk sometime. It sounds like you've got a lot in common.
Yeah. I thought it was a good time, that one.
So
yeah, he hung out more than I did because I'm not a smoker, but I think he did have a cigar back there too. So.
Yeah, and so I mean, I've not smoked either, but from my experience being around cigarette smokers and cigar smokers, it's a pretty different experience as far as what happens with the smoke and the environment. So I can see where that might be. It might almost set a good mood. Grab a nice rum and hang out around the cigar smokers, even if you're not cigar smoking. Is that weird?
I go with the rum, but I'm not a smoker either. So
that's where I went was with the rum. But yeah, it was really it really enhanced the whole experience, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
So what do you remember about the food on the ship?
Oh, we gotta talk about the food. Yes.
It was pretty normal Royal Caribbean cuisine, main dining room cuisine, but it was pretty good. Everybody at the table, both times we cruised, were pretty impressed that for a small ship they had a really tasty offering, and they may have spiced it up more considering where we were going. But it was pretty good. I can't remember anything like spectacular that stood out, but I remember the food just being really good for main dining room food, which is mostly what we did, main dining room and then the Windjammer, of course. That was the easiest.
Yeah. And being a smaller ship, like I think you kind of indicated this before, it didn't have a lot of extra specialty restaurants or like Jamie's or Chops or Wonderland. I'm sure it didn't have Wonderland on there.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, probably not. So okay, so hopefully we've given people a little bit of the flavor of the ship, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit more here. But I think what a lot of people are going to want to watch and have tuned in for is going to be to hear more about the experience of cruising in Cuba. Regardless of the ship, but the small ship got you there, and it sounds like it was a good ship to cruise on. But let's talk about cruising to Cuba. Starting off with maybe talking about any special challenges or special requirements that you had to deal with to cruise into Cuba, just to go there as an American.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to do things that you won't have to do for any other island because of the embargoes and stuff. So Initially, we had to, when we checked in, and the check-in process was a little bit longer than normal because we had this special paperwork. We had to fill out some paperwork about why we were there, and Royal Caribbean gathered that paperwork, and that they handed that over to government agencies because they keep track of who goes to Cuba and why. And most of us were there for humanitarian, one-on-one, get to know the Cuban people reason is what we were able to select on there. You also have to have a visa, and the visa at the time cost $75, and that was a mandatory visa that you had to have. And they gave us that, they charged it to our room, but they gave us our blank visa, and we had to carefully fill it out because if you made a mistake, then you could have to buy a whole nother visa.
Oh, no.
Yeah, for $75. And it actually had we went through a customs process. So, we went and waited in line. We presented our visa. They looked at our passport. I don't think there were questions, but it was very much a customs situation, unlike any of the other islands in the Caribbean where you just kind of turn up and, get on the ship. So that was a lot different. And then plus the money, we had to exchange our money. The American dollar, I think sometimes vendors would take it, but they really didn't like it. And it would get them in a lot of trouble if they got caught with American dollars.
Really?
So it was like an exchange place right there as soon as you got done with the customs, you could go get in line and exchange your money. And a lot of people would trade their dollars before they got there to euros or Canadian dollars because the exchange rate was lower, depending on what the exchange rate was to get the euro or the Canadian dollars, because it was a much higher penalty to exchange American dollars with them. So then you exchange back and forth, but we didn't intend on bringing any money back. Like the money that we had was the money that we planned on spending one way or another. So, so that was different too, because you can use American dollars everywhere, but that was not the way they did it here. Plus, there are two currencies. There's a currency for just the Cuban people, and then there's a different currency for tourists, and they have different symbols and stuff on them. So they try to keep it in check. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. I would never even occur to me. And like you're saying, usually the American currency, at least in the past when we've cruised, has been welcomed. I mean, I think in Mexico, I think they would prefer that to pesos when you talk to the vendors there. Yeah, that's crazy. And I didn't know about the different types of currency. Yeah. Interesting. Wow.
So what was your excursions like on your first Cuban cruise?
So on the first cruise, we were just going to Havana because that cruise stopped at other places. And we took one of the government-sponsored bus tours that we bought through Royal Caribbean. So that was pretty low-key, but I think we figured out really pretty quickly that we were being kind of escorted in a way that they wanted us to see the world, because the places that we drove around were fairly nice. And then we went to the government-ran restaurant, and that was pretty nice. But it always felt like things were a little bit controlled and not quite as open and as you find it at the other islands.
Right.
And you mentioned the government-ran restaurants, and I think you sent us some photos. Was this from one of the government-ran restaurants?
Yes, yeah, that is from one of the government restaurants.
It looks fancy.
They did a good job. And it was a lot of food, plenty for us. And I thought it tasted wonderful. The beans were amazing. I got chicken. My husband got lobster, and I don't think he was quite as happy with it as I was with that chicken. But the Paladars are the family-owned restaurants that basically they just kind of let you come in their dining room and kind of turn into an ad hoc restaurant kind of thing. But this was a government ran, and pretty much everything was government ran. I noticed too in a lot of the stores, if you were in it like a government ran cigar shop, they never came in. They never would address you. If you needed help, you just would go ask them, hey, I need some help. And they were very nice, but it wasn't like the same kind of thing you would get here where like, hey, may I help you? What are you looking for? It wasn't any of that at all. Now, when people were vendors were selling stuff like in a doorway, those people had a lot of hustle, and they would, ask for the sale and chase you around a little bit, like you're kind of used to on the island. The government stores were clearly all like, kind of low key, and you came to them if you needed it. But they were really helpful. Like the first time we went, we were kind of cigar mules because everybody wanted us to bring them back cigars. So we had like a list of things that people wanted us to bring. And so, we said, we have this and we have money, how much can we get for this? And we started negotiating the exchange, and, our Spanish was limited and their English was limited, but we worked it out and we got a lot of really goodies, a lot of good cigars for the people that asked for them when we went. So they're, like I say, very helpful, but not the same attitude that you get here.
And you didn't have any problems bringing in the cigars once you got them?
No, not at all. And in fact, with the liquor and the cigars, they didn't take those away. Like a lot of times when you buy liquor on an island, they'll take it away from you when you get on the ship. And they didn't do that either time. They kind of considered the rum that we were buying and the stuff we were buying as just souvenirs. So they didn't bother taking that away.
And now when you're talking about, just for anybody that isn't familiar with how it works, you're talking about the cruise ship, the crew taken away, because normally, and it sounds like you've experienced the same thing we have, whatever cruise line it is, you come back from the island with or wherever port you're in with a bottle of rum or whatever. They're like, okay, here's your claim ticket, you can pick it up the last day, but you're not holding on to it. You can take it to your cabin.
So, drinking in the cabin.
I guess we saved it until we got home, but yeah.
Well, that's really interesting. It's interesting how some things are really strict and some things were kind of like just really laid back, of course.
Yeah. And another difference too, when you bought sizable artwork, like not maybe small pieces of art, but if you bought a larger piece of art, you had to have a certificate with that art. So we bought this big painting, and the artist gave us a certificate. So so when we went back through customs, we showed them our certificate, as otherwise we would have had to pay some kind of fee or fine there with the customs person if we hadn't had a certificate. So the artwork has to go out with a certificate.
I wonder what's behind that. If they're trying to prevent
taxes, probably making sure they keep track of the taxes that they get.
The money motivation as usual. That's probably a good guess. So that was on your first cruise, and I don't know if I forget if we mentioned your first cruise was the shorter cruise. That was
just Havana.
You just went to Havana on that first cruise, and you had the 1 day a day long excursion with the government. It's a government run, right?
Yeah, the government ran, and we probably got started at like 9:30, and I think that we were done in the early evening, and then we had time to go back to the ship and change clothes, and then we went out. We still had time because I don't think they left the island until in the evening. So we went back out, and we had a Cuban sandwich in Cuba and a daiquiri in Cuba, just like Hemingway.
Nice.
And at a paladar, we found a paladar, and we had bought some mojitos, and I really think they were $3 a mojito. I think it was really cheap.
Wow.
We were trying to remember like how much were those mojitos, but they were very affordable. Rum is very affordable in Cuba.
Yeah, and they were good mojitos.
Yeah, they were excellent mojitos.
Good. Now, and that was on your first cruise there. So let's talk, just for comparison's sake, since we're talking about excursions and the experience touring the island, let's talk about what your experience was like on your second cruise when it came to and you had 3 port stops on that cruise, right?
We did. It stopped at Havana, Cienfuegos, and Santiago.
Right.
And we sailed around the ship, and we got to stay there longer because we ended up having enough time going to go to the Tropicana the night we were in Havana. So it was called like an immersion cruise or something. We had heard about it when we were on the Empress in January, and it didn't we were home like a week before we were like booking the September trip to go to the immersion trip because we kind of wanted to get there before. We kind of thought with tourism was like really ramping up, and I think we really thought that it was going to explode, like the way like St. Martin and Cozumel have really matured, and they were kind of very simple years ago when we started cruising, and now they're very sophisticated. There's an Effie's and all that
Right.
kind of stuff right there by the port. I mean, they become really fancy and places to eat and lots of shops and stuff. And we kind of thought that was going to happen in Cuba, so we
Yeah.
kind of wanted to see it before it got changed.
Right. Right.
Right.
Right.
But it changed.
Right.
But our
Yeah.
second trip, we went with all private tour operators.
Okay.
So like when we went to Havana the second time, I was technically on an picture taking tour. So this guy
Mhm.
had a really amazing camera, and he was a really good photographer. And so we went through, and he would take shots of us, and he would take shots of stuff, and then we just got got the SIM card, and when we left, that was part of the deal that we got. So he's like kind of showing me, hey, look at this, take a picture of this. And he was taking us to really good places to take pictures. He also kind of wasn't. We're kind of on the outskirts of Havana with that trip, because the police were starting to really question people that were going in private tours. And I felt like they were kind of getting like asked to give money to the police if they were private tours. Oh, and what you're looking at this is on the outskirts of Havana, and Sam took this, and this is basically like a tienda. This is like a store, and I don't know if you can see, but there's like a half of a pork pig hanging there.
Yep.
So that was kind of the shops that they went to that weren't the government stores. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so and that was Havana, and the other two ports you went to. Did you do excursions in all of them? Maybe I got lost in.
Yeah, we did. In fact, we had the same for the in Frepo and Santiago. We had the same guy, and actually we kind of ended up in the same group. There were maybe like there were 2 cars full of us. There were maybe a half dozen of us.
Okay.
Maybe a few more, and he traveled, like we had a day to sail from one spot to the other, and he traveled via land and met us with drivers. So we we went in old cars, and they took us to different places and toured us around. So we went completely private on the second tour, and definitely they were younger. They were much younger tour operators, and they were really, really awesome to be around. They were they were entrepreneurs, and they were really showing off the island to us. We really felt like we got to see so much more of the reality of what it was like to be in Cuba and what it was like to be Cuban.
They still have all the old cars there.
Yeah. Oh, and those cars they're really like, there's these bizarre Frankenstein of cars. They've got all kinds of different parts from different cars and things that they've made homemade. One of the cars we were in had they put an air conditioning above us that was from a van, from totally different make of car,
Really?
from 15 car. They just did what they can, innovation. They're amazing people, they make what they need, and to keep those cars running and not have any like legitimate parts available to them, it's just a wonder. And they're so proud of their cars, and they're truly beautiful.
Yeah, and they should be. That's, I mean, and like you said, it's an amazing level of ingenuity, and all those years not being able to get the parts because of the embargo, and to do it. And I mean, it's good it happened, maybe around that time period. I can imagine if maybe the car makes were maybe less cemented. We've had other areas. I'll pick on the 70s. If it had happened and they were stuck with 70s cars and they're getting parts for it, I don't know if people would be rushing out there to go in a Ford Pinto, they've been all fixed up,
my
even
goodness.
if it was shiny.
Yeah.
So it's that does certainly add to the appeal
it's very romantic. There is a romantic era in the 50s for their cars.
Yeah. So talking here, just a wrap up on the excursions specifically. One more question. You kind of gave us a pretty good idea here, but how would you compare? What would you say the big comparison is between the state run and the private tours? And I feel like I already know what I'd pick based on what you said, but what are any other big differences?
and if I was recommending, I would definitely say go private operator if it's
Right.
still legal there. When the time comes for us to get to visit there again, you
Mhm.
just really find out so much more about the people, about their lifestyle. We on the second day of when we were in Santiago, my husband had asked that we please stop and get something to eat, and so we stopped at a paladar arranged by our tour operator. And this is where we found out like this wealth of information. Like they have ration cards that they buy, and they can get
Wow.
like 5 pounds of sugar per person. They can get so many eggs. They can get bread, just all, and that's what they get from like the government ran stores. And no one tells you that on the
Yeah.
government tour. And it was just really fun to get just kind of what was going on. And they were also talking about I think they were talking about in 2019, they were going to implement a law that banned private operators from having a tourist in their car. So they were going to kind of get
Right.
rid of all the private operators.
Mhm.
And I think that was really, again, to kind of just get a cut
Yep.
of the
Oh.
system, to get a cut of the pie. And because it was when the second time we went, it was really starting to get really popular. A lot of the
Right.
people were starting to do the private tours over the government ran tours. So I
Yeah.
guess that's how they were going to control that.
Sure,
Huh.
and for correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but for anybody who's just tuning in, Charlene visited Cuba in 2018. Both cruises were in 2018,
Yes, yeah.
and if I'm not mistaken, 2019, the following year, the privilege, the opportunity to go to Cuba as Americans was taken away again.
Right.
Wow,
So
that's so
it was
sad.
such a narrow window that you were able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it sounds like I imagine you have a great interest in culture and history and everything else. So to be able to do something like that, it's like a bucket list type experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It was
that's
it was life changing too. I mean, I think the islands in general are really interesting, but Cuba in particular, it's just got so many things different than the rest of the Caribbean that it was definitely it was a life changing experience for sure.
interesting.
So,
Go ahead.
about the food in Cuba, what did you think of the food in Cuba?
I thought it was really good. I thought it was really good. Well, we lived in Florida for a number of years, and it was very similar flavors. So I think what I was eating in Florida was very authentic. I always joke that I had a Cuban in Cuba, and I prefer a Cuban in Miami, just because they have so much more meat than the Cubans in Cuba, because the meat is a little bit scarce there. But I think a lot of the food that you get like in Miami is very authentic. Same breads, same style for like a Cuban sandwich, beans and rice. So it was very plantains. It was kind of the kind of Cuban food that you would expect, but
Right.
it was really delicious. They just did a lot with what they had, and it was
Yeah.
all very delicious.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm
Makes
guessing
me
that.
hungry.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. You start ask questions about food. That's
I
what happens.
know.
And I imagine the ham is a little scarcer, a little harder. If you're talking about ration cards and all that, then yeah, I suppose they gotta you gently put on little slices on your Cubano and in Miami, you've got all these people that have come from Cuba, and they're like, we want that awesome flavor. We could go down the street to Publix and we can get a bunch of ham and throw it on there and really make this up the way we had always dreamed it would be.
Right.
So yeah, that's interesting. That if you have the right people, you can get the awesome authentic food, maybe even better than in the home country. Who knew? Who knew?
Maybe go to Florida.
Yes, go to Florida. And I was going to ask you about the Cubano sandwich because that's what when it comes to Cuban food, I beans and rice.
Uh-huh.
I hadn't thought of plantains, but that makes a lot of sense.
Uh-huh.
And of course Cubano sandwich because I think that's the Cuban food that I've had the most in my life.
He makes a good Cuban sandwich.
Well, not as good as they do in Miami, I guess. We got to go down there.
Well, we should try, and that way I can decide.
Road trip. Everybody get in the car. Let's go. So anyway, anything else? Are we any more food questions?
What surprised you the most about Cuba that you weren't
It doesn't
expecting?
have to be. It doesn't have to be food related, right?
Right.
Okay.
Oh gosh, that's a hard question. There was a lot of things that really kind of surprised me about it. I don't think I realized um, the impact of an embargo and the lack of commerce and how that really changed just the whole culture of that island. I didn't really think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And that really surprised me. Just kind of seeing that different way of living and
Right.
living under an embargo for years and years and years, for like the everyday person. I didn't really understand how that was impacting,
Right.
the normal
Right.
person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so if it was open again, if Cuba opened again,
Mhm.
would you go on another Cuban cruise?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We would love to be back. Love to
Right.
get back there.
Right. So you would probably have to. You'd have to find a small enough ship, though. It sounds like, unless they got really serious about expanding tourism by cruise ship.
Well, and we had heard when we were there the second time that MSC was trying to negotiate with the Cuban government to help them build out their docks so they could
Oh
get
yeah.
bigger ships. And then, of course, that all just went to the
Yep.
wayside. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like. Well, we don't talk about politics on the show, but it
yeah,
sounds like a lot of politics. I tell
we
you.
need to stop that so we can go back to Cuba.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. So let's see. Let's move on. Let's talk about the comparison of the three ports we talked about. You've been to Havana twice,
Mhm.
and I'm not even going to Santiago something,
Yeah, Santiago de Cuba. Yeah.
and the Del Fuegos.
Yeah.
But would you recommend one over the other? Or it sounds like Havana was probably more of an urban city experience, but I don't know. I'm just going based on what I've heard from you mostly.
Yeah,
But,
I think Havana's very prepared to take guests,
mhm,
and a lot of a lot of the parts, especially that they walk you around with the government tours, it's really clean and
right,
safe and fixed up. I mean, the ocean is very hard on any building, but especially on buildings for countries that are struggling financially.
right,
So I think it's a kind of a must see, to go there. But I think that Santiago was also really a very interesting area, and it had and they all really had something to offer. But it was kind of a little bit more sophisticated, I think, than maybe Sinfagos. Which
right,
I
right.
apologize for my Spanish and how horrible.
No, I wasn't even going to take a stab at that. I
Un
probably.
poquito español.
Did
That
you?
means little Spanish.
Oh, I thought you were saying some food thing. Okay, so. So we know that you would go to Cuba again. You'd recommend Cuba again. And Sam says more countryside in Santiago. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess it depends what you want to experience. It sounds like you would probably recommend a more than a one night cruise. But it's a good thing you did that quick cruise you did. I mean, who knows? You might not have a chance for a second one.
Right.
Yeah, and I thought it was ridiculous when Sam was like suggesting it, but I went
Mhm.
along with it, and I'm so glad I did because we would have missed so much if we hadn't
Yeah.
gone a second time.
Yeah. It's great that you got a chance to do it. So, let's say hello. Carolyn's in the house. Good to see you, Carolyn. We're talking to Charlene about Cuba, her Cuban cruises experience, 2 cruises on Empress of the Seas, and she's told us a lot of great information about the ship and about Cuba. Anything else that we should know about Empress of the Seas or about Cuba that we haven't covered here? And then we want to kind of shift gears a little bit. So wrapping up the ship and your whole both cruise experiences. Anything else that we should know?
I think you should know you should go. And
That's good.
experience Cuba. It's definitely worth your time, and it's different enough from the other islands that
Mhm.
you should experience it.
Yeah. It sounds like the biggest thing they has in common with most of the cruise ports that ships go to in that part of the world is that they have rum. It
Yeah.
sounds like the biggest the biggest thing they have in common. But yeah, you don't hear a lot of talk about ration cards and Nassau, Bahamas. You don't hear about government-run tours in St. Thomas. It's a whole different experience, and hopefully we can all do it again sometime soon.
Yeah.
Speaking about the future, any future cruises that you have planned or that you're thinking about that you are willing to share with us? What your thoughts are, or anything booked?
Our next cruises are on Virgin Voyages this
Oh,
December.
wow.
Ooh.
So and we're going mostly places that we've been. We're really just going for the ship, and then we're finally getting on Carnival next year, and looking really forward to that. And then we've got a Halloween cruise in 2022. We're doing the ABCs, and I've been wanting to do Halloween on a ship for a long time. So 2022 is going to be a big year.
Wow. Yeah.
What type dog do you have there?
Yeah. This is Zoe. She's my assistant.
Aww. She wants to go on a cruise too.
Yeah.
On a cruise.
Too bad. Oh, and I think we'll back up here just a minute. Sam says we're supposed to ask about rebar.
Oh, so okay, I'll try to tell my story fast since you guys have got something to do. So we thought we were going to become Cuban citizens just for a little bit. So we were in Santiago. It was our last spot. Sam was giving away all of our Cuban money because there was no point in exchanging it back. So, and there were hurricanes. It was in September, so there were strong winds and hurricanes around, but not necessarily on us. So we're going through this like area between two sets of buildings, and the sand is picking up and it's kind of hitting our face, and it's a little bit crazy because again, there's storms kind of spinning around. So we get out to the pier, and as we watch, our ship is pulling away from.
Oh no!
And the look on my face must have been horror, because the customs lady put her hand on my shoulder and said, "Well, they're just repositioning the ship." And the customs people have been really very professional and very hardcore up to then, and she was very, very nice, comforting me that the ship was really not going to leave us. And we're trying to figure out, I think it was maybe 100 other people hadn't gotten back on the ship. We still had like at least 45 minutes before we were due back. So it was a little bit alarming to see the ship leave.
Yeah.
So then as the story evolved, once we got back on the ship, everybody started putting their pieces of the information they knew. We were talking at dinner. So one person was on the gangway they were all, with a small group, and they were going to walk back. Well, a lady's hat flew up in the air, and so they all got really consumed with catching the lady's hat. Well, which was good, because the guys on the other side, they were in the ship, they were like just doing this with the gangplank because the ship is getting pulled away. So what had happened is, I guess the moorings, the big cement things that they tie the ropes on. So one of those had broken off and fallen into the ocean. And then we found out from one of the people that we had dinner with that there was no rebar in that cement. So it's a wonder it held up as long as it did. And it was pretty serious. They thought they were going to hit ground, because they came on and said prepare for impact, because they thought they were going to actually run aground, and who knows how long we'd have stayed there if we had actually crashed the ship. And they ended up they got 5 tugboats to position the ship and hold it there so that the rest of us could get back on. And the way their customs area was, it had like 2 shipping containers back to back. And so then, of course, when the winds kicked up, then it rained super hard because there were hurricanes in the area. And so we all it was like, we were shoulder to shoulder in the shipping containers until they got everything tied back down so that we could safely get back on the ship. And it was really, by then the customs guys had just said, forget about it. And they became really nice, and they were letting us play bombs and all that kind of stuff. So very that, but it was quite an experience.
Yeah, good story to tell.
Building a structure of concrete without rebar, not only for something that's going to hold something as heavy as a ship, but also in a water prone area.
Yeah,
that's kind of a mistake, I would say. I dare say that. Carolyn asked a question, and Sam's kind of jumped in to help out since he's got some similar experience. But she was asking about the visas to cruise to Cuba.
Yeah, and they were $75 at the time, and then World Caribbean just charged that to our ship, but they arranged for us to get them. So that was very convenient of them. I guess you could have gotten them on your own. I don't know why though, because it was just much easier to let World Caribbean handle it.
Yeah.
It's nice that it sounds like from the stories we heard about cruising out of the Caribbean from Jen and Dale, cruising on, that was actually on Celebrity, but I think it's less about the cruise line and more about just the setup. That cruising out of there was probably more challenging after COVID here than in some ways than cruising to Cuba, which kind of surprising to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like they made it about as easy as they could. At least Royal Caribbean did as a cruise line. But there definitely are some unique things about Cuba that hopefully more of us will get to experience here in the near future, and you'll get to experience again. And Sam says he thinks the rebar got stolen. They stole the rebar?
Yeah, the pictures that I was trying to send you, and I think it didn't get over. I took a picture of some rebar and metal work, and it was outside of windows and made into like screen door kind of things. So we think that's probably where the rebar went.
Weird. Okay.
Wow.
Well, I guess you got desperate people all over the world, so maybe somebody had a need for some rebar. Huh. All right. Well, let's switch gears again, and I would feel bad if we didn't spend a little bit of time talking about your awesome YouTube channel. We want to let people know about your channel. Again, if I'll mention it again, it's linked down below. You can check out Charlene's channel, and can you tell people just kind of what kind of videos they would find on the channel? Just give them a preview. Sorry, there was a
yeah. So we kind of started the channel because we were cruising out of Puerto Rico, and we were doing our research, and we were really struggling finding information on some places. And then by the time we got things kind of arranged is when we found out that there are like 3 bioluminescent bays in Puerto Rico, and the most popular one is in Mosquito Bay, but it takes some doing to get there, because it's on an island off of the main island. So I really wanted to start the channel to try to give that off the beaten path information, kind of get a little bit more immersive, but not, on YouTube, there's a lot of like people just kind of like going to the beach and doing the basics, or doing like base jumping. And so I wanted to try to have a channel that was somewhere in between. We're still pretty active. And a lot of our friends are still really active. So we still want to, we want to hike to the waterfalls and that sort of thing. So I want to try to find the off the beaten path stuff. And my joke is off the beaten path, but not too far. So that's where we kind of started the channel. So I want to try to give more insight and more options for things to do on the islands that I've experienced, so that you can make every second of your vacation time count, because it's it's not very much time, and you want to make it count of what little vacation time you have. So and I was so mad that we didn't find out about the bioluminescent space until it was too late. And there's a lot of little stuff like that I'm like, what, I want to share this information.
And that's one of the things I really love about your channel. But I got to say, here's the difference between you and me. You're regretting not knowing about that special, magical, natural experience. Me, when we got back on the ship at Perfect Day at Coco Cay, and I had people saying, "Oh, did you try the chicken sandwich? You didn't try the chicken sandwich?" I was like, "No, I didn't know about the chicken sandwich until it was too late." So.
Yeah, so that's cool, right? It's just kind of little extras that really make it cool, make the vacation even more special.
That's right. And that's what I was going to say is one of the things I really like about your channel. And I think, I strongly recommend everybody go and subscribe to your channel. Links down below. But I think if you didn't subscribe, you might stumble across in the future, because you're going to be typing in a question, and Charlene's already covering those questions. So I think for years to come, you'll be finding her videos when you're going out and trying to figure out, well, I'm going here and I don't know what to do, or how do I do that? You got a lot of great informative videos, and I really like that about your channel.
And plus, you're a travel expert, right?
I think I am. Yeah. And I'm in particular like cruising in the Caribbean is kind of my thing.
Your
I know
specialty.
we've
Yeah.
gone to a lot of islands and we've done a lot of cruises. I guess, well, we've been on this high seas for just under 100 nights, which is we're amateurs compared to many others. But yeah, we get out there as much as we can, which, we haven't been able to do here lately, but we'll be back. We'll be back big.
So speaking of cruises, what do you have planned next for your YouTube channel?
So this week I'm probably finishing up. We went to Wilmington, North Carolina for just like a couple of days. And so I did a bunch of video on that. And I've got one more coming out about Carolina Beach and then the Carolina Beach Boardwalk. And I'm kind of shooting that in kind of more of a film style. I've been taking a film class.
Nice.
So less of me talking and more like just kind of showing stuff. I'll probably get back to kind of my lists and stuff. I want to do, there's a bunch of travel classes that I've been trying to take on different ports of call, like some things to do in Miami, of which there's a lot. It's kind of hard to narrow that down to a short list, and just different places that we've either gone or that we hope to go. And then I can kind of get extra information through the travel agency that I'm involved with. So yeah, just more stuff about that, kind of just the normal bread and butter stuff about, different islands, different ports of call, things to do. And like say the ports of call in America too, like because you should, we always go down at least a day early because there's always so much to do.
Oh yeah. That's what we like to do too.
Absolutely. So we talked about your YouTube channel, but I also want to mention that you and also link down below, we have Charlene's Instagram and your Facebook. So maybe just really quickly, we're running low on time, but if you want to just give people an idea, because what I've found is that you offer a lot of variety. I mean, you just mentioned you do two or three different types of things on your YouTube channel. What can people find on your Instagram, and what would you direct people to your Facebook for?
So yeah, Instagram, just like pictures of things that we've done that I think are cool. Mostly the Facebook. I started a private Facebook group because I was really getting sick of the politics in the cruise conversations. So it's, no politics in this group, and it's no particular allegiance to a particular cruise line. So it's just cruising, all cruising all the time, tips and tricks, trading information back and forth to each other, which is really what I want to try to build, is a community of people that like to cruise and aren't necessarily loyal to one line over another, but just want to get the most out of that cruise vacation. So that's where I'm trying to go with the Facebook group.
Yeah, that's cool. So for the Facebook group, do people need to ask to be invited into the group? Is that how it works?
Yes, to be invited, but very few people get denied. So
okay, so
but it is a private group so that we can feel more comfortable to talk.
Sure. And I've got your link from your, I think it's from your YouTube about page, and so if they click on that, they'll be able to ask politely, please, may I join?
Please let me in.
And as long as they behave themselves and they don't get all mean and beat up on other people about their favorite cruise line or something, then
exactly,
you're welcome. Yeah, well, I like the positivity. That's great. So it's been really great having you here. We've enjoyed talking to you in the past, and we've like I said, we've really been enjoying your YouTube channel, your Instagram. We really appreciate the fact that you're doing what you're doing, and we really thank you for joining us here tonight. It's been a lot of fun.
Time's gone by so fast.
And thank you guys for being troopers through this really dark time for travelers in general. I really, it's given me strength to be able to watch your videos to help me carry on too. So I greatly appreciate your channel and what you're doing.
We appreciate that. And we're all part of this happy community of cruisers, whether we have YouTube, Instagram, or if we just enjoy going on the cruises ourselves. To everybody watching and to you, thank you. Let's get back out there.
Yeah.
So
get
Charlene,
back out there, be safe.
That's right. That's right. So thanks for joining us and being with us tonight, Charlene. We've really enjoyed collaborating with you. It's an awesome to have you on, and hopefully we'll have you back and talk with you about going to Cuba or somewhere else exciting again sometime real soon.
I would love that. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, you take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So that was Charlene from Island Jumper Travel, and we got, again, I mentioned a couple times, we've got her her YouTube channel, her great Instagram channel, and her Facebook group that you can ask to join, linked down below. Right?
Yep.
So, and be sure to check that out. Subscribe to her YouTube. You won't be sorry. She's got a lot of great information on there. You know, you can subscribe to us too if you haven't already. But I need to mention before we run out of time here that next week we're going to continue what we started last week. We couldn't finish last week because there's too much to know.
I know.
What you need to know before you go on your first Carnival cruise. So join us next week, 8 o'clock. Pretty much every Monday. I think we're skipping Labor Day because I don't know if people are going to want to sit around the phone or the TV or whatever, the computer, whatever you watch us on YouTube.
They're outside cooking hot dogs.
We're going to take Labor Day off, but usually Monday nights, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Join us, and if you subscribe, be sure to hit the notification bell. That goes for Charlene's channel too, because that way you'll know when we are going live or we have something new that's out, and that way you won't miss out. So. We appreciate you joining us again tonight. We're always glad you're here, and we hope to see you again next time.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, and now I got to remember how to end this. I never could remember how to end this. So you want to say what we say at the end?
Thanks for joining the Cruise Day Fun.
Awesome.